You can hallucinate vividly by taking too much Benadryl. It's not like shrooms or LSD with Benadryl. You see shit like shadow people and severed heads. And I legitimately did it by accident, but if you did it on purpose, then you're a dumbass. Don't do it again. Anyway, well, this is a story about the time I accidentally took too much Benadryl. And if you don't know what happens when you take a little bit too much of it, well, just listen to the rest of the story. Now, Benadryl can be used for allergies, it could be used for sleeping. I used it for sleeping. Anyway, it was about 11 o'clock on a night about 2 years ago, and my mistake that night was taking a little bit too much Adderall, and I was wide awake and needed some help sleeping, which was a kind of a dumb idea because I needed to get up the next morning for something important. Anyway, I reached into my bag and grabbed the new pack of Benadryl that I had just bought. Popped 3 of them this time. I'd usually pop 2, and it's significant that it was a new pack because the one I had before, I believe, was 25 milligrams per tablet. This one was liquid gels, and I thought it was 25 milligrams per liquid gel. But ladies and gentlemen, it was 50 milligrams per liquid gel. So instead of popping 2 25 milligram tablets, which would have equaled 50 milligrams, I popped 3 50 milligram liquid gels, which equaled 150 milligrams if I got my math right. So that was the first problem. Well, the first problem was my Adderall problem, but the second problem was the very high dose of Benadryl. So I went to bed, I lay in bed, I sat there waiting for the Z's to arrive, but they never arrived. 10, 20, 30, 40 minutes passed and I wasn't feeling tired. In fact, I was feeling even more awake than I did before I took the 3 liquid gels of Benadryl. And I was mighty confused, but I was thinking maybe it's a liquid gel, maybe they hit you different. So I decided to get up and go to the kitchen to get myself a glass of water. So that's what I did. I got out of bed, I got to the kitchen, I went to the sink, I grabbed the glass, I filled the glass full of water, and then I went to make my way to the bathroom to, well, you know what you do in the bathroom. Don't think I need to explain it. But before I could make my way to the bathroom, looking down at my feet, I was standing on a real thick carpet. You know those carpets with them long strings of strands or whatever you call them, coming out from the carpet that feel real good on your feet? Or those thick strings of strands or whatever you call them. They were waving around like crazy. They were looping and zooping and flipping around, and I was thinking to myself, well, that doesn't seem like normal behavior for a carpet. Well, I was mighty confused, so I turned around and looked behind me and looked at my guitar that was on the ground in the living room right behind me, and I looked down at the strings of my guitar, and I keep a little bit of extra strings on my guitar when I'm stringing them up. And you wouldn't believe it, those strings were zooping and lipping and flipping around like crazy, just like those strings or strands or whatever you call them on that thick carpet that always feels so good on your feet. And I got to thinking, is everything that's thin and stringy gonna be wild, zooping, flipping and zipping and looping like crazy? Well, instead of standing there and trying to figure it out, I decided I need to walk real quick to the bathroom to do what I needed to do in the first place. But on my way walking there, I caught something out of the corner of my eye, and my goodness, saw something in the corner of my eye. I took a look to my right, and on the counter right past the sink where I filled my water, you wouldn't believe it, there was a severed head, seriously, a severed human head sitting there on the counter, and my goodness, I shook my head from side to side, closing my eyes, trying to get the image of that dead human being's head out of my own head, and of course, hoping that when I opened my eyes, it'd be all gone. And thank goodness it was. When I opened my eyes, I saw that it was just a pineapple. My roommate had bought a pineapple and put it on the counter, and in my Benadryl state, I hallucinated a severed human head in place of a pineapple. And needless to say, I had enough of the hallucinations and whipping and lipping and zooping and human severed heads and all that, so I went to the bathroom to do what I meant to do in the first place, hoping I'd see less zooping and looping and flipping and flopping and guitar strings flying and severed heads on account I'm in the bathroom and not the kitchen. So I hurried my way to the bathroom, I pulled the seat up, well, you know how it goes, but I set my glass of water right down on top of the back of the toilet, right next to an aerosol can of air freshener, and almost immediately, that aerosol can of air freshener started moving in a straight line towards me, slowly but surely, while my glass of water, which was sitting right to the right of it, was staying as still as could be, while that aerosol can of air freshener to the left of it was slowly but surely moving itself closer towards me. And I decided instead of watching another hallucination, I'd try and look at something else. So, looking over my left shoulder, still doing my business, I looked at the bathtub, and boy, the bathtub was filled with purple water. Now, I knew that I didn't fill the bathtub up with purple water, and I knew my roommate that I was living with wouldn't have filled the bathtub up with purple water. So, I figured the most likely explanation was another hallucination. So I booked it back to my bedroom, and I figured that maybe with me laying in my bed under the covers being comfortable, that would help. It didn't. 'Cause the first thing I noticed was when I looked to my right, there's a big mirror there, and I was looking at myself laying in bed, and the first thing I saw about myself, bet you could guess, I was looping, zooping, and moving like crazy. I was going up and down and side to side in my bed, and boy, my face was contorting and twisting and slapping and sliding. And in particular, my face was moving around like crazy, my eyebrows going up and down, and my mouth was moving around in uncanny valley style, smiling and frowning, and my teeth were growing, my hair was flowing, and my head was rolling. And to be honest, it was kind of interesting. Honestly, a little hard to look away at how interesting it was. But eventually I did decide to look away, and the next thing I saw was looking forward, seeing all black silhouettes of people walking into my room one by one. And by black, I don't mean African American. I mean that they were two-dimensional shadow black figures resembling silhouettes of human beings, and they were walking into my room from my door on the right, going across my room and through the wall to my left. And from my experience of looking up experiences of people going through similar experiences that I was going through now, I knew that this had to be the shadow people that the people in those experiences had talked about. Boy, I was seeing the shadow people. They were coming in one by one, and I was thinking, thank goodness they're not coming towards me. But right when I thought that, one of them came and started walking towards me, and I was like, are you kidding me? And he came towards me, and he came, oh my goodness, right up to my bed, and he leaned himself down right in front of my face, about 2 feet in front of my face, and I stared right at him, and I thought, listen, Shadow Man, I know you're a hallucination. I accept my fate. Do your worst. Either way, I closed my eyes, I opened them, he was gone. But the shadow people continued to walk into my room and walk around and slide around the walls and do the things that they did. And I looked to the left of me, on the wall to the left of me, and saw an American flag flying and waving all brilliant and patriotic like. Very vividly, this American flag was there, waving and flying. And the only problem was I didn't have anything on that wall, so obviously I vividly hallucinated an American flag on the wall. And there's many things I forget about this now, but one of the things I remember most clearly and most vividly and most truly was what happened when I pulled out my phone and decided to record what was happening to me. You see, I like to record things like this to remember for when I'm older, so I can look back and think, oh, that was the time that I saw the severed head and the waving flag. You know. So after seeing that American flag flying and waving to my left on the wall that didn't exist because I didn't have anything on that wall, pulled out my phone and it was an iPhone. And anybody with an iPhone knows you got the keys on the phone and it's a black letter inside a white rectangle. And ladies and gentlemen, I am not kidding, not lying, I'm not faking or making anything up or exaggerate one bit. Every single letter on my iPhone's keyboard had morphed entirely and vividly and clearly into a unrecognizable symbol. Every single letter was something that I had no idea what I was looking at. I couldn't see any letters. There wasn't an ABC. There was a thing with a line going through it, and there was an upside down triangle with a dot in the middle and a line coming out from the top of it with a... Well, you get the picture. Everything was a completely unique, unrecognizable symbol. And honestly, the thought that I had at that moment was, my goodness, how could my brain do this? This is amazing. Similar, but obviously not nearly as profound as the time that I did DMT and thought, my goodness, how, okay. Anyway, some time passed and, honestly, I'm not sure what I did with that time, but I think maybe I looked over to my right at that mirror and kept looking at my face, warping and zorping and zooping and flipping, or maybe at the shadow people coming in and leaving. But however much time passed and whatever I did, I decided to go back to my phone and do the recording of the trip that I was going through like I had planned to, hoping that the symbols on my phone were turning back into letters. And luckily they did, but I had to squint my eyes real hard and think real hard to get those symbols to turn back into letters. But they did, and I was able to start typing out what I was going through and what I had gone through up to this point. But I would discover the most significant part of this whole night, to me at least, was how absolutely hard it was and almost impossible to type out a single word without forgetting and being confused at what the heck I was doing and what the heck that letter means and what the word means and everything. Seriously. So let's say I wanted to type out shadow person coming into my room. I'd start to type out S-H-A, what's an S, what's a shy, what was I typing, what am I even doing? What's going on? What the heck is going on? If you read the early notes from my quote-unquote trip report, they read kind of like a caveman talking, as simple as you possibly can, because that's the only way I was able to get out the words that were in my head. Now again, eventually it got easier and I was able to type it out, and the next day I added in the information that I wasn't able to add in that night. But there's one more thing that happened that I think you should know about. The next morning, and I didn't get a single second of sleep on account of the fact that I was on Benadryl, seeing severed heads and waving flags and lipping and flipping and zooping things. But I went into the living room early in the morning because I had to do something that day and I needed to wake up. I sat down on the couch and I looked over at the armchair that was to my right, not 5 feet away from me, and you wouldn't believe it. I saw the spore of a mushroom growing slowly but surely out of the left arm of the armchair. Seriously, right out of the front of the left arm of the armchair, that mushroom spore was growing straight up. And I was thinking, what the hell, I thought it was over. Now there's a mushroom growing out of the chair. And I would say this is the most vivid hallucination that I had in the entire time. Now, if I could find a moral to this story, I guess it would have to be this. And listen closely. Don't develop an Adderall problem in the first place, because then you probably won't have to buy that wrong pack of Benadryl that would inevitably lead to a night like this. You can have vivid hallucinations if you're tripping on Benadryl. Wouldn't recommend it, but if it happens to you, just realize you're okay. The shadow people will leave soon. You can have vivid hallucinations if you take too much Benadryl. And that's the end.